It's like, here we are, all connected to the same thing, and yet we've found ways to separate ourselves from each other. And I want to bring it back. I want to bring it back to the same thing. I want to celebrate our differences and bring it back to all being connected. And that's a challenge. And that's what I want to ask questions about in my art. I'm Joey Hartmann-Dow. I grew up going to Lehigh Valley Friends Meeting in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And I am an artist / human. It says that on my business card. I work mostly in 2D, mostly painting and drawing. So I use maps a lot, and I'll often draw or paint directly on a map. The idea comes from me wanting to make work about the relationship between humans and the earth, which includes all kinds of creatures, so maps felt like a really awesome way to do that. I would say that the creatures look most of the time vulnerable. That's something that I kind of put in there because I want it to seem like this thing you should take care of and not mess up. I would love if people looked at my art and saw the earth as a living thing and asked themselves, oh, like, what if I treated this as a living thing that I shouldn't like kick in the face, but maybe take care of? So I want these creatures to read as human, but without any of the features that we use to characterize different groups of humans, because we humans, we're so good at that. Just boxing people into different categories like race and gender and age and ability, and I wanted to represent humans without any of that. I feel like the way Quakerism affected my personal growth, I would definitely say it affected my philosophy and how I communicate and how I am. And that feels very much interwoven with being an artist. I guess because I want my art to be a reflection of who I am, and that very much comes from the John Woolman quote, "Let your life speak." The first time I heard that, I was like, yes, I want to do that. I would go to Quaker meeting and kind of hear all this anti-war sentiment, and I thought that was normal, but it turns out it's not. And that was something that I struggled with, and kind of separating this thing that I knew with like what the majority of people were experiencing and feeling. Yeah, it became this challenge to like speak my truth in the face of other people's opposing truths. Which is like, how are we going to move forward if our truths are different? And I know that I have something in common with everybody. So that's what I want to find. And I think the like very obvious thing that I have in common with other humans is being a human. So that's like my go-to. This is sort of draw on other people's experience of being human and go from there. The thing about social change is it's usually slow. And what I'm thinking about is like how to get a person to change something about their lifestyle that is going to positively affect the community, the earth. And I've noticed that fear and guilt doesn't work. So I thought to myself, what might work? Yeah, it does come back to vulnerability, because I think somebody is more likely to really like go there with an issue if they're feeling vulnerable and they're feeling like they're communicating with another person who's like getting vulnerable And I've seen that, you know, like individually, in groups, when people like really let loose and can be vulnerable with each other, like all this truth comes out and all this connection. And that's where I want to go, because like that's where we're going to see change.
I'm here at New Garden Friends Meeting in Greensboro, North Carolina, just to say thank you for watching this QuakerSpeak video. We release a new video every Thursday, and you can subscribe to the channel by clicking on this button over here. You can support the project for as little as $1 per video. That button is just below me. You can see all the videos we've ever released down here. Hope you have a great Thursday.